Welcome. We are going to start learning laws of Shabbat, and we're starting with laws of cooking on Shabbat. We will say mainly halachot according to Rav Ovadia Yosef, and we're gonna use the textbook Orot HaHalacha. It follows the Yalkut Yosef, Rav Ovadia Yosef, and I'm going to read in Hebrew and translate. What is the melacha of feh? The work that we're not allowed to do, because this is something they used to do in Beit HaMikdash in order to build the tabernacle. And that is, they would take spices and they would cook them, so that these spices were used to afterwards to color. They were used as well to add the taste into the shemen hamishcha, the oil, the anointment oil. In the Mishkan itself, we would take flour, we would make bread and bake the bread, and then we would put that bread on the golden table. 12 loaves every Shabbat we would change it. On Friday we would bake, and on Shabbat we would change. So things that were done for the construction of Mishkan or functioning of Mishkan are considered work, and we don't do them on Shabbat. Now, what is considered cooking or baking? And that is hakshayat davar rach or rikuch davar kashe be'emtzeut esh or chom. Whenever you soften something that's hard through fire, or whenever you harden something that is soft through fire. An example of it, you take an egg, it's liquid, you put it into hot water or into fire. What happens to it? It becomes hard boiled. The protein in the egg denatures and becomes hard. So this is an example of taking something soft, making it hard. Or you take dough, which is soft dough, you put it in fire, it makes bread, makes harder substance. What is an example of taking something soft, something hard, and making it soft through heat? You take meat, which is very hard to chew. It's very hard. You put it in water or fire, you cook it, becomes soft. Or it can be done not only with food, but even with metals. You take hard metal, you put it in fire, you heat it up to the point that it melts. Melting a metal is also cooking, because you soften something that's hard through heat. That's the general definition. Now the first halacha, ha'ofeh pat b'shabbat ad shenikru panea. You take dough, raw dough on Shabbat, and you throw it into the oven, and it starts baking. How much should it bake for it to be considered baked and a person transgressed cooking on Shabbat? Shenikremu panea, once there is an outer layer that became harder. We call it crust. Once the crust develops, even though it might be not ready inside, once there is crust, it's considered edible. Even though it's not the best, you can make it better, but it's edible already. Once there is crust, the person transgressed the melacha of afiyah. In general, anytime something is baked halfway or something is cooked halfway, it's considered edible, even though maybe most people are not going to eat it, but it's considered edible, and person transgresses. If you take something that is almost edible, so there, even if you add just a little bit to its cooking, it's going to become edible. You make it from 45% to 50%, it becomes half-baked. Just that for those 5%, you transgress. Or somebody who cooks food halfway already transgressed. וכנראה מתגל בשבת. Either way of cooking is a problem. For example, frying or roasting. חייב משום מבשל. So we mentioned baking, cooking, frying, roasting. All of them are forbidden on Shabbat. הלכה ב' איסור בישול בשבת אינו רק במבשל דבר חי שלא נתבשל לגמרי, אלא דין בישול נאמר גם בדבר שהתחיל להתבשל מערב שבת והתבשיל ראוי לאכילה על ידי הדחק, ועושים בישול בשבת אפילו מעט. Not only if you take something raw and you cook it is a problem, even if you take something that is not fully cooked, you're not allowed to add to its level of cooking. Sometimes it's Torah prohibition, sometimes it's rabbinic prohibition. For example, if you take something that is less than 50% cooked and you make it 50% cooked, now it becomes edible, that's a Torah prohibition. Or you take something that is already edible and you make it better, it's also prohibited. It's not as severe that the person who does it would not be liable to death penalty, but it's nevertheless prohibited to improve the food. הלכה ג' המתיך אחד ממיני מתיכות, כלשהו. He gives an example that we mentioned already. If you take metal and you melt it, you raise it to a high temperature and you melt it, person transgresses cooking on Shabbat. Or you take hamimes et hadonag, you melt wax. You take a piece of wax, like a candle, it's hard, and you put it in a hot place or apply fire to it, it melts. Or et hachelef, you take a piece of fat, solid piece of fat, you put it in a place where it will be heated and melt, it's a problem. Chayav. Or et hazefet, you take tar, what they pour on asphalt, on streets to close the cracks, when you heat it up, it melts. Something like this is also prohibited on Shabbat because of cooking. Harezet toledet mivashel, it's an extension of cooking, v'chayav. Such a person transgress Shabbat. Halacha dalet. המבשל בשבת דבר חי שלא יתבשל מעולם אפילו הוא ראוי לאכילה כמו שהוא חי. What if you cook something on Shabbat that's already edible? Is that prohibited? You take an apple and you want to make compote out of it. You want to make baked apple. Am I allowed? It's edible already. כגון פירות וירקות שראויים לאכילה כמו שהם חיים, אסור מן התורה משום מבשל. Nevertheless, it's forbidden according to Torah to cook such a vegetable or fruit. We said originally that you take something that's not edible and you make it edible. Now we're learning that even if something is edible already, and heating it up is considered cooking. ואף פירות שאינם משתבחים בבישול כלל, אסור לבשלם בשבת. Even if I'm not improving the taste, and maybe even I have a food that tastes better when it's raw. By cooking, I didn't improve it. It's still forbidden on Shabbat, if it was never cooked yet. We're going to learn that something that was cooked already and it became cold, under some circumstances, we are allowed to warm it up again. Warming up already cooked food is not considered cooking. It's considered warming it up, reheating, and knowing the halachot is permissible. Next, המחמם בשבת מים או שאר משקים. What if I'm warming up water? Water I can drink cold. Can I warm it up? והתחממו עד שהיד צולדת בהם, הרי זה אסור מן התורה משום מבשל. And becomes hot to the point of, I'm going to now say a term, יד צולדת בו, to the point that I cannot keep my hand in such hot water. It burns me. If I bring water to that point, it's going to be cooking. What is that point? Yad soledet bo means the point where the hand will recoil if it's put into water that hot. What is that temperature? For Sephardim, we are strict, that we follow the most stringent opinion, and that is 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. By the way, they recommend that if you have a jacuzzi, 103 is average, and a lot of people cannot handle if it's 104. People who like it extra hot, they make it 104. But more than 104, everybody agrees it already burns. 105, it already, and when the temperature reaches 106, cells in your body start dying. The proteins in your body start denaturing, changing their shape, and it's actually dangerous. A person can die if his body is going to reach temperature of 106. So we consider temperature of 104 lechumra, which means we're stringent because we're dealing with laws of the Torah. We have to be extra stringent, and 104 is the highest maximum. More than that is already cooking. Now, there are other opinions that hold a little higher. There are some opinions 107, 108, 110, 112. But for Sephardim, we hold the most strict, which is 104. Later, we're going to learn that there is a different definition of Yad Soledet Bo, and that is to the other extreme. Because sometimes you want to know until when can you cool boiling liquid down. And we're going to say you can cool it down until the topmost limit of Yad Soledet Bo. Less than that, it's going to be considered not cooked, and you cannot reheat such liquid. And that is 170 degrees Fahrenheit, or 80 degrees Celsius. If you have hot liquid and you take it off fire and becomes cool, not cool what we consider cool, like room temperature, but it becomes less than 170 degrees Fahrenheit, it's already considered not cooked, and you cannot put it back on fire. So we have two extremes, 104 degrees Fahrenheit and 170. And depending on the halacha, we use one of those extremes. And the last halacha for today, מותר לתת בשבת מים או שאר משקים כנגד האש כדי שיאפשרו. In the winter, you open cold water faucet and it's freezing, cold water. It's very hard to wash hands like that. You would like to take this water and put it next to a warm place to warm it up. Are you allowed to do it? Yes, you're allowed to take a container of cold water and put it in a warm place to warm it up a little bit. בתנאי שיתנם רחוק מהאש באופן שלא יוכלו להגיע לידי חום שיד סולד בו. The only condition is you cannot put it on direct fire, or you cannot put it close to the fire so much that it will reach the temperature of Yad Soledet Bo. What's the temperature? Here we use the lower limit, which is 104 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can put it in a warm place as long as you know that it's not going to reach temperature of 104 degrees Fahrenheit. You can warm it up, you can even make it hot, but not more than 104 degrees. אבל אסור לתנם במקום שיכולים להתחמם עד שתהיה היד סולד בהם. אפילו יהיה עומד על המשמר ויזהר להוציאם משם קודם שיתחממו בשיעור זה. Even if person says, you know what, I'm going to stand next to it. I'm going to put it close to fire, and I'm going to stand next to it, and I'm going to watch it. And I'm going to test the water constantly. If I feel it's getting hot, I'm going to remove it. We say not allowed. You have to put it in a place where even if you leave it there for a long time, it's not going to reach 104 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's hotter, we don't rely on your memory. Even if you're standing there, the Chachamim forbade it. And so you have to test the place. Put your hand there and see, is it hot? If it's hot to your hand, that means that if the water stands there, it's going to reach that temperature. So distance it more. As an example, you can put a container of water next to your stove. You have fire on the stove. Don't put it directly on the stove, but next to, and it's going to warm up. Or you can put it on a radiator if the radiator is not so hot. Or if it's very hot, you can put it next to the radiator. With this, we conclude this lesson. See you again next time.